Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz joins us now. Senator, really good having you on an important day. So, talk to just the monologue was all about how the rhino class, the establishment class in the swamp are probably more detrimental to Republicans like yourself, conservatives like yourself, than even liberals, because we know where the liberals are. We don't see the rhinos coming. Are they on their way out?
Well, listen, I think conservatives across the country are certainly fed up with Joe Biden and the Democrats, but also fed up with Republicans who don't stand and fight. And I can tell you what my message is to my colleagues, which is that we need to stand for something. We need to fight. We had in November, right after the election, the first leadership challenge we've seen in the Senate since Mitch McConnell's been leader. And I stood in front of the Senate Republicans and I turned to Mitch and all of leadership and I said, is there anything on which you're willing to fight? Or is the position of Republican leadership going to be that we roll over on everything Joe Biden's trying to do? We just saw a really lousy deal on the debt deal where unfortunately, Congress signed off on $4 trillion in new debt in exchange for really modest spending reductions. And I think we should have stood and fought and demanded far more. We should have been willing to use the leverage we have. And I do think the voters are frustrated that it seems over and over again Republican leadership is willing to help the Democrats with their agenda instead of standing up and holding them to account.
Senator, you yesterday were on fire. I watched this hearing. You were going right at the FBI official. Tell us I couldn't believe what he was telling you. Tell the American people what he was trying to convey to you.
Well, listen, the last week we've seen bombshell revelations. We've had a whistleblower come forward who said that a confidential informant came to the FBI and gave the FBI testimony and evidence that Joe Biden, when he was vice president, received a $5 million bribe from a senior official at Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company, in exchange for official actions as vice president. That is a big, big deal. That was apparently memorialized in a report written at the FBI called an FD 1023. And so yesterday, the deputy director of the FBI was testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I tried to press him on this. And number one, ask him to confirm that the FD 1023 contains evidence that Joe Biden was personally involved in receiving a $5 million bribe from a foreign national. He refused to answer that question. I asked him if he would hand over the FD 1023 to the Senate Judiciary Committee. He refused to answer that question. Also, 2 days ago, Senator Chuck Grassley went to the Senate floor and revealed that there are 17 tape recordings of phone calls between this senior Burisma executive. 15 of those calls are with Hunter Biden. 2 of those calls are with Joe Biden personally. I asked the deputy director of the FBI, is it true that there are 17 voice-recorded calls? He refused to answer. I asked him, does the FBI have those 17 recordings? He refused to answer. I asked him, will the FBI give those 17 recordings to the Senate Judiciary Committee? He refused to answer. And I got to say, Eric, it is infuriating to see the FBI stonewalling and protecting Joe Biden, covering up corruption in the White House. It is infuriating that this politicized FBI believes they are not accountable to anybody.
Senator, say that again, if you will, for my audience. A massive audience are watching you right now, because I don't think I've heard this. And I spend a lot of time. There are 2 I don't care about the 15 with Hunter, whatever. There are 2 recordings from with on one end of this phone line or whatever is Joseph Robino Biden, and another is someone from Burisma?
Yes.
Because Biden has said unequivocally, time and time again, I have nothing to do with Burisma, I know nothing about it. And Chuck Grassley has heard his voice on these recordings?
So Grassley has not heard them. What Grassley has done is he's the only senator who's read an unredacted version of the FD 1023. So he's read the report, and the report alleges that these recordings exist. We don't know for a fact that that's true, but that's what the report alleges. And so I was asking the FBI, and the FBI just refused to answer. And mind you, there's no legal prohibition. There's no bar to their answering those questions. They just smugly and arrogantly say, I'm not going to answer you. I'm not going to tell you that. Eric, as you know, I do every week a podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz. We do it 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today's podcast does a deep dive into all of the evidence we know right now of Joe Biden personally receiving a $5 million bribe from a foreign national. And so if you want to really do a deep dive on it, the podcast is Verdict with Ted Cruz. You can listen to the background here, but in short, if this is true, number one, Joe Biden should be impeached and removed from office. The Constitution explicitly enumerates bribery. It says impeachment lies for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. But number two, if this is true, Joe Biden should be prosecuted and go to jail. And I'll tell you, the corrupt corporate media doesn't want to cover this. They don't want to discuss it at all.
You know, I'm a regular listener of that podcast, folks. I'm going to listen to it, and you should as well. Senator, really good having you on. We'll stay on top of this. Thank you for staying on top of it as well.